Welcome to DEF CON 3. I'm KT McFarland. Concern is building as the U.S. and world powers work with Iran over a deal on their controversial nuclear program. And some critics are saying that countries involved in these talks, like Russia, are more concerned about making a profit from the negotiations than finding a security situation. Well, here with reaction is Jack Devine. He's the former head of the CIA's Directorate of Operations and author of Good Hunting. And Jack, welcome, but I gather New York Times has now got your book Good Hunting on the bestseller list for espionage books.
Last Sunday.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I'm delighted, of course.
Well, I'm sure it's gotten the Iranians very nervous and Putin even more so. So let me ask you, is Putin, are the Russians more interested in making a deal so they can sell products to Iran when sanctions are lifted?
There's probably, from my perspective, there's multiple reasons. I think they have a larger strategic view about having Iran, and I think we've always, even during the Cold War, back and forth trying to have a handle on it. But there's financial considerations. Russia is hurting, and what baffles me about this deal is that if the sanctions are lifted, I would expect oil prices to go down, and I don't see how that helps the Russians. On the other side, they can sell weapons, and they're very much interested in doing that. And the Iranians absolutely need to upgrade their 1978 aircraft and their ships. So there's a marriage made in heaven there.
Well, if Russia has its weapons, and its weapons aren't really the first choice of most countries in the world, they'd rather have European or American, would the Iranians try to buy from Europe as well as Russia?
That's a good question, and it depends how open this arrangement is. I mean, we won't know until we see the details on this. I'm not very optimistic, I would be.
About the deal.
About the deal and being happy with the deal, but I'm prepared to be surprised. But then I think we're going to have to take a hard look at what the implications are for Russia. But they've been siding with the Iranians on most issues, and certainly relating to the sanctions, because they don't believe in sanctions because they're the subject of our sanctions now, and it's hurting them.
Are the Russians using these negotiations? You said there were several reasons they were interested in them. Is it to get back at the United States, sort of one-up us?
I think Putin is a pretty hard, giblet-eyed politico, and I think in the back of his head he'd like to, sort of stick it in our eye. But I think he's looking at it from a very practical basis. I said from the beginning, there's always been a strategic interest, both in the United States and in Russia, about Iran's future. And certainly Israel has a stake in this, of course.
Even though we're sitting down on the Russian side of the negotiating table, how are U.S.-Russian relations then?
They've been better for sure. My own hope is that they improve, but it takes two sides to improve relations, and I think the situation in Ukraine is a really difficult one. I don't see how we can resist trying to stabilize the western part and to push back. And I don't mean with troops on the ground, but certainly I'm for providing substantial financial aid and for arming and training the Ukrainians in the West. So I think that'll remain a bone of contention. It's hard to see how we move away from that.
Do you think that Putin is an opportunist, is going to look at the world and say, well, the Chinese are preoccupied, the Americans are preoccupied over Iran, the Europeans are preoccupied over the Greek and debt situations. Is this a moment that Putin might decide to make a move on Ukraine?
It's hard to get in his head, but as an old KGB guy, I think I have some sense of it. And that is that I think in Putin's mind, it's all about power and how far he can extend Russia's influence and how much he can bring the motherhood of Russia back into the major stage. I think these are real practical reasons. And what he sees, I believe, is an opportunity to push. And that's why I'm so concerned about the Ukraine. If we don't demonstrate that we are prepared to try and contain him, and I think that's what it's all about, he will continue to press until it's not in his interest to press. And I think we have to make it not in his interest to press.
So we potentially another crisis in Ukraine.
I don't think it still percolates. I think we had a really bad week last week in terms of confrontation. I think it's the worst they've had in a while. It's not just there. I think there's a mindset that You know, he's a tough negotiator. We have to be tough at the table as well as in Iran.
Okay.
This is an age of where toughness really matters in the leadership positions of the major powers of the world.
Well, thank you very much, Jack Devine. Check out foxnews.com for more on the Iran nuclear talks and pick up a copy of Good Hunting. I'm KT McFarland. Thanks for watching.